guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Alex and this is the Lily Library. So today we are doing a book tag. How fun. I've never done one before, but I was tagged by Maeve. Hey girl. And so I was like, let's do it. I also loved the questions in this tag. This is the Bring Back Browsing book tag. I love book browsing. I love book shopping. I love going in without a plan and coming out with sometimes the most incredible reads. So today I will be presenting you some of those books that I have found. The first question, Magic of Discovery. Share a book you found while browsing that you may not have discovered otherwise. And for that, I picked Godless by Pete Hotman. This book came out many years ago. I believe it was in the early 2000s, and it did win the National Book Award, so it was well known, but I had never heard of it and saw it while I was browsing a used bookstore. This story is about a young man who has become fed up with his parents' fundamentalist religion, Catholicism, and the pressure he feels to conform to it. And he decides that he would like to create his own religion that worships the town's water tower. This religion that he creates gains more traction with his fellow schoolmates, and he begins to see how something that started out as a joke is becoming more and more real to not only himself, but those around him. And he begins to see the effects that his own organized religion has on its worshipers. I love this. I thought it was so smart and well done. It really explores the absurdity that is organized religion as a whole. I also, because of this, picked up a later release of his, Eden West, which I don't think is as popular. I don't think as many people know about it. This is a story of a young man who has grown up in a cult, and due to outside influences coming into his life suddenly, he begins to kind of dismantle his entire way of thinking and his ideology. It's about religious trauma, and it is so good. It's handled so compassionately. It's kind of fun that this is from the same author because this is obviously quite satirical, but this one was very emotional. I adored these even though I grew up without religion. But I think that these would be very powerful to someone who grew up with a fundamentalist background. You'll feel a great sense of connection with Hotman's writing. Used Bookstore brought me these two gems. Thank you to that used bookstore. Question 2, Expanding Worldview. Share a book that has made you view things from a different perspective or exposed you to new ideas. The book I picked for that is The Reluctant Fundamentalist by Mohsin Ahmed. This is a fantastic book that I also discovered browsing my local used independent bookstore. This is a story of a Pakistani immigrant who is living a very privileged life in New York. He was the top of his class at a very elite school. He has a very high-paying, affluent job, and he is dating someone who is introducing him into the New York socialite scene. All of this changes after 9/11, and microaggressions turn into full-blown racist attacks, and he begins to feel his life being upended, and he feels his entire identity shift. Still very relevant this year, I would say. This is an incredibly powerful book. I would definitely recommend it to everyone. One scene specifically stands out to me, and it's why I picked it for this book tag. Our main character is watching 9/11 happen on TV, and his reaction is to start laughing. He explains this laugh by saying, now the Western world can experience this feeling he has had, that his family has had, that citizens who live in vulnerable Middle Eastern countries feel daily because of Western influence and Western action and imperialism. It was quite shocking to read. It's obviously, the initial reaction is to be offended by something like that. Like, how could you laugh at something so horrific that claims so many innocent people's lives? And then you think, well, how do we value lives as a Western culture? And why are certain lives more significant than others? Because we can't see them, because we're not exposed to them daily, because we are indoctrinated to think a certain way. I grew up in a post 9/11 world, and there was this fervent nationalism that was created that was fueled by anger, like violent anger. And we question still how people can become radicalized. It's very interesting that Americans specifically, we have only briefly experienced a moment of the terror that they experience on a daily basis. Very obvious right now of what is happening in Palestine, what is happening in Syria. I think technology has really helped us be able to see things through a different perspective, but reading can do that as well. And this is an incredible book, and you should read it. You should also read Exit West by the same author, which is about the refugee experience through two characters that are extremely relatable. I like to hear all stories. And that is the beautiful thing about literature, is that you are exposed to many, many stories that you may have never heard before. Next question. Open to change. Share a book that has changed who you are as a person or altered your day-to-day habits. This one was a little tricky because I don't really read self-help books. I picked a book that changed my day-to-day thinking, and that is Nomadland. It's by Jessica Bruder. This is about a journalist who travels around the United States and interviews people living in SUVs, who are living in RVs, who are living in converted vans, who live in these kind of nomadic communities. And at first you think, okay, is this like a hippie revitalization? Are these people just looking to live off the land? Are these people just looking to live this nomadic life? But in reality, you find out very quickly that these are people who have been financially impacted and they have no other choice but to live in these pretty brutal conditions. And it's a lot of elderly people. It's a lot of people who have no retirement, who have no other option, who have no family. It borders on homelessness. And it's becoming more and more relevant and prevalent because people just cannot financially buy homes. They can't retire. It's very dystopian. It's very horrifying to read how America treats its elderly people. We have no reverence or respect for them, in my opinion, when you compare us to other cultures. It's frightening. And I think this is a lens into the future. And I think we do need to be thinking about these kinds of things daily. And I think we need to change our day-to-day actions. I worry that as a society, we are shifting into a survival mode. I think an economic collapse is evident, and we just need to continue to advocate for real change. So yeah, that's a heavy answer, but this is what I would pick for it. Browse the bookstore, library, or friend shelves and talk about a book you found there. So I'm gonna pick a book that I found at my local library that I ended up purchasing because I renewed it a couple times and just haven't gotten to it yet. And that book is Angels Before Man. It's by Raphael Nicolas. And okay, guys, I haven't read this yet. I cannot wait to read it, but I have to tell you the story about it. I was browsing my local Kentucky library and saw this really intriguing cover. Now, this is the second edition cover, which is also just absolutely stunning. The first edition is just one of the angels' faces. It immediately drew me in and caught my attention. And then I look at the back and I found out that this is a queer retelling of the fall of Satan. And not only that, but it is independently published. So my Kentucky library was carrying an independently published queer retelling of the fall of Satan. And I said, honey, I'm checking this baby out. Not only that, but I have continued to check it out just to keep it in circulation, because I think it's such an incredible thing to have at my library. And even though I bought a copy, I want other readers to have the chance to read it. Well, I haven't read it yet, so I cannot confirm whether it is fantastic, even though I really think it's gonna be. I read the first chapter, the writing is stunning, and I want that type of literature to be available to anyone who wants to read it. So I will keep renewing it at my library. Thank you very much. But I'm definitely getting to this in 2025. I cannot wait to read it. I will always support queer authors, and I will continue to renew this book at my library just to get it in the hands of someone who probably needs to read it. All right, guys, so that wraps up the book tag. I'm gonna tag everyone watching this video. I would love to see your spontaneous book choices. I'm excited to see what you have as well. See you guys in my next video. Bye.